Okay, everybody, welcome to Neverwinter. My name's Alistair, and we're going to now look at the Arecanist build for the Wizard. Now, the Wizard Arecanist doesn't quite put as much damage as the Thaumaturge, but it does get its daily powers back, I find, faster, especially in its AoE, meaning it's still a very potent class to play. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the power setups, and so we're going to start off with our AoE powers. We'll come over here and we'll start off with the feats. Now the feats are almost exactly the same except from this one here. Because this isn't my main character, I don't have multiple builds. I've got an Arecanist and a Thaumaturge, and this here is what I'd use for AoE. I'd go bottom, top, 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 top if I was going to build a purely AoE build, because Nightmare Wizardry is such a clutch powered AoE. You have a 10% chance that your critical strikes have 10% chance to grant you combat advantage for 10 seconds. That's massive, especially in AoE. That's on kin with like the rogue's power, with going from stealth and then having combat advantage on all attacks for 2 seconds. It's a similar thing. Same thing with the fighter. It has a chance to apply this as well with Knee Breaker. And it's just super good for AoE. However, I've got these in for single target, so we're on the AoE build, so I'd go for Spell Twisting, Assailing Force, Chaos Magic. Now for my single target, I go Striking Advantage, but I would personally go for AoE Nightmare Wizardry, and a step above Mastery, again, for my AoE build. Now, each of these, without going into them in too much detail, is just increasing your magnitudes, percentages, and triggering with your arcane mastery and things like that. Here on class features, we have Orb of Imposition, increasing the duration of your control powers by 25%. Your control powers do 5% more damage to control immune targets. You have a lot of control powers as a wizard, so that's good. Storm Spell, shock your target for 120 magnitude 20% of the time on critical attacks. So that just means your crits are hitting even harder. Here we have Arcane Singularity. Arcane Singularity is definitely the best AoE power you have, and then you have Ice Knife for any big tank enemies in single target. Now you have your Arcane Tempest, which I've got in X. You've then got your Icy Terrain that I've got in Y. And you've got your Steel Time in B. And then your Lightning Bolt. It doesn't overly matter which order you have them in. Icy Terrain being melee when it's not in the right bumper. You kind of want to get it off nice and early. And it gives you massive action point gain. And here we've got in right trigger Storm Pillar. And we have got Magic Missile. Now most of the time I'll actually just use Magic Missile. But Storm Pillar can be useful as well, and it can do quite a bit of damage also. So let's have a little look and see how it'll work on the ads. Here's our At-Will, here's Arcane Mastery. It's not a huge, so it hits like maybe a couple of enemies, mostly just one, and then your other one is this power here. And it does an AoE attack that does a good bit of damage. But you want to make sure you keep your stacks of Arcane Mastery up. So I'll use 5 of these, and then I'll be spamming them. I won't be holding them down, I'll just be tapping it, because you can get good quick cast time. If you hold it down, you get way more damage, but obviously it's a longer cast time. So this is good for AoE. Now to go into combat, I will start off with my X, pop that down, knock them prone. Icy Terrain, dodge back, B, and then I'll use my right bumper, and then from there on, I'm just going to use stuff when they come off cooldown. Remembering that I have to dash in to do my Icy Terrain, like this. And it's as simple as that. Now, for your daily power, I'll show you what it looks like. It's a big chunk in AoE, look at that, massive chunk in AoE, and you're going to pop it down just wherever you want it. It'll pull them up, and then it'll do damage at the end. So at the end, you'll get the damage. Boom. There's the damage, like 800, 900 magnitude. Okay, so let's have a little look here. We're going to see how quickly our action points come back when we get all our encounter powers on and all our stacks up. So, there we go. Now, if you look here, your action points will start coming back quicker and quicker and quicker. and it's super nice. Getting close to the arc, there we go. There's a big burst. There we go. Now the stacks are starting to go on and it's starting to come back quicker. But you see, it's not too bad for action point recovery. You can build into this with action points and really output a lot more encounter powers. So if I went into an action point build, we would get them back even quicker. There's the daily again. And then I'll do one more rotation of these. And we'll go again. And see how quickly we can get this daily back. Because we can get it back pretty dang quick in ad fights. Obviously we don't have combat advantage, so we're missing out on a whole bunch of damage, but that's okay. And it's just as simple as that. The rotation is not overly complex, it's nice and simple and super, super easy to get the hang of. You're just using your encounter powers when they come off cooldown. That's basically all you're doing. And, you know, you've got your daily back pretty damn quickly. Excellent. All right, let's move on to single target. So for your single target setup, we'll let the powers come off cooldown. We've got 6 seconds left on that cooldown. And we will go into our single target. Now, this is where, obviously, striking advantage will be better than nightmare warding, because normally with bosses, you'll have combat advantage, except from possibly something like Tiamat, where you won't have combat advantage ability unless someone has a scorpion in your group. Your encounter powers, your class features will stay the same. Working up, you want Arcane Empowerment is the one I'll usually go for. However, you can use Ice Knife. It depends on whichever one you want. Arcane Empowerment, encounter powers do 20% more damage and they recharge faster. That's awesome. Ice Knife is a big damaging hit, but if we can get more encounter powers, we might do more damage. So I personally go for Arcane Empowerment. However, you can use Ice Knife if you would rather. It doesn't make a huge difference. I think overall outcome, Arcane Empowerment is slightly better. Entangling Force is your first. In your X, in your Y, you want your Repel. In your B, you want your Disintegrate. And in your right bumper, you want your Arcane Conduit. Now remember, you're doing more damage for control immune targets, and so you're gaining benefits on both of those. Yeah, you're getting benefit on 2 of your encounter powers. And then Magic Missile for your main attack, and then Ray of Frost for your secondary attack. And so how this is going to look is nice and simple. It's a very easy rotation. You're literally just going to be doing 5 stacks of Arcane Mastery, so 5 casts of this, and then you can use your Ice, and you can hold that down for a bit. And when it comes to encounter powers, it's just X, Y, B, right bumper, and obviously if you look here at the cooldowns, some of the cooldowns are going to be different time than others, and so just use them when they come off cooldown. Just like that. Right bump will come off, and then Entangling Force will come off. And then your Magic Missiles for your Arcane Mastery, and just use them when they come off cooldown. It's as simple as that. Now the artifact call's a little bit more strict. I'm going to show you with Tactician's Precision, and then afterwards I'm going to show you without Tactician's Precision and Cavalry's Haste. So here we go. The artifact call starts. I go my 4th encounter power in order. I'll use my daily, I'll use my next 3 encounter powers, and then my mount power as well in there. And it's as simple as that. That is my artifact call for the wizard with Tactician's Precision and Cavalry's Haste. You don't really need the Cavalry's Haste there. And actually, I've done it before where I've used Cavalry's Haste at the end of my 6 encounter powers and gained an extra encounter power because of it. It really just depends. So let's go and have a little look at, I'm going to do it one more time I'm going to show you the rotation. See if we can use the mount power at the end to see if we can gain one more encounter power within that rotation. So let's see how this goes. All right, 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to have my 5 stacks, and then I'm going to go. Okay, 5 stacks are applied. All right, let's drop. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, daily, and then working backwards, B, Y, X, right bumper, and then my mount, and then working back again. And yep, that's another 2 encounter powers in that way. So what I was doing is I was doing X, Y, B, right bumper, daily power, and then B, Y, X, right bumper, and that gave me 8 encounter powers, my big B's hand, and then I managed to get 2 more in within that 10-second slot, my B and my Y again. That's massive. That is a lot of encounter powers that you're able to squeeze out in one artifact call thanks to your Tactician's Precision and your Cavalry's Haste. If you do in that order where you do the Tacticians, the 4 encounter powers, your daily, then the 4 encounter powers, your Cavalry's Haste, your mount power, and then you can squeeze a few more encounters in at the end. You can end up with like 10 encounter powers, if not more, in an artifact call when it goes really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take these off so you can see an artifact call without them on, and that's going to just allow you to see what it's like when you don't have it. Now when you don't have it, it's fine. It just is going to obviously miss out on a bit of damage that you could potentially squeeze out. So here we go. It's going to be your artifact, then it's going to be your daily, because your daily is going to buff your damage. Your daily, as I said, I'm not personally using Ice Knife. If you want to use Ice Knife, it goes at the end after the encounter powers next to the Big B's hand, before the Big B's hand, or the Toad if you're using the Toad. Anyway, the mount power. So with Arcane Empowerment, it goes right at the start. So daily, Arcane Empowerment, and then X, Y, B, right bumper, daily, X, Y, B, X, right bumper. And that's actually 4 encounter powers inside the period of time with just the Arcane Empowerment. So that's really, really good. You can then also use in your Y slot instead, you could use your Ice Knife. And let's see how that affects the damage. Let me go over here, pop him off, pop him back on. In fact, let's do this. Switch these dummies around so I can just hit a little bit. But as you see, the rotation is very, very simple. You're just using stuff when it comes off a cooldown, making sure you keep your stacks of Arcane Mastery, and just going from there. Alright, our cooldowns are close enough. Let's have a little go on this boss dummy here. And this time we're going to have the Ice Knife at the end, just before the Big B's hand, and see how that rotation goes. So X, Y, B, right bumper, daily power, mount power. So you get a few less encounter powers, but you lose out on a little bit of damage because you gain a bit more from your encounters. So definitely using the Arcane Empowerment is much better. If you don't have Tacticians, Arcane Empowerment at the start after the artifact is going to give you a load of extra encounter powers, and if you have Tacticians and Big B's hand, you can squeeze out even more if you were to do the Arcane Empowerment a little bit sooner in the rotation. Anyway, that is the Arecanist wizard. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be moving on to another class next, and I will see you there. Goodbye for now.